Welcome back to That Rugby Podcast, hosted by the Sports Booth and myself, Luke, and my co-host, Hughesy. What a week of footy, eh? What a weekend of footy.
Yeah, great weekend of footy. Positive results and negative results. First look at the Eddie Jones second coming at the Wallabies. Not probably the hot start he was hoping for, but what it was, I think, was a real revelatory experience, and a lot of questions that he might have had were answered. So, I mean, we'll get into some more analysis of the game, but the All Blacks look good, and the Springboks look deadly. South Africa in a World Cup year. What else? What more do you need to say?
Totally, yeah. I mean, the two top teams, I think, of the Rugby Championship flexed their muscles big time over the weekend. But that wasn't all the rugby, obviously. All Blacks XV, Australia A coming up this week, the Wallaroos, the
Wallaroos,
Black Ferns,
under-20s.
Under 20. So we'll cover all that today. But let's start with the first game of the Rugby Championship. South Africa with what the South Africans are now happily calling the B team.
Yeah, definitely the B team. You know, South Africa's got great depth. You know, and those wingers are just deadly, deadly. Look, it was. How do I put it? Look, it's hostile territory. The Wallabies never won there. Was always going to be a difficult ask, you know, to go there and win. But I think what it was good for was finding out. Eddie Jones got to see his players in live game action in his system, see how they play to it. Right? You know, I think there was. What was good about that is he had some players that clearly he liked, you know? Yeah. And we got to see if those players would work well in Wallabies colours in the Wallabies system. The answer for some of them was yes. The answer for others was no, right? I'm going to focus on the positives first because there are precious few of them. But there were some positives now. And I'm going to say as well for South Africa, for the people saying also B-side, whatever, Kurtley Arendse is not a B-side player. You've got a lot of, you know, they put, you know, they just got very deep side. Positives, Marika Koroibete doesn't look like he's lost any speed, power, ferocity. He looks amazing. Very outstanding performance from him once more, right? Very, very happy with how he played, right? In the forward pack, Skelton and Arnold, the two imported second rows, looked very good. Nick Frost didn't look out of place either, so that was an area of concern for the Wallabies. But I think they were actually probably some of the best in the forward pack on the weekend, along with Bobby V, Michael Hooper. Where we were let down, pretty much everywhere else, right? But the most obvious one, and he's really become the poster child for what went wrong with this game, is Suliasi Vunivalu, right? High ceiling, low floor is how he plays, and that's exactly what we saw. You know, the fact that he was beaten 3 times on his wing for tries, as well as yellow card, a penalty try, and things like that. Just not a good game from Vunivalu by any stretch, and really it should be the last time we see him in Wallabies colours against another Tier 1 nation. Right? I could see resting some of our A team for sides for Tier 2 and below nations in the World Cup pool stages and things like that. I think that's what you keep him around for, if you keep him around at all. But Mark Nwangani Tawase, it looks like there's a clear night and day gap between him and Vunivalu. I think Vunivalu had his chance, and that's it. Look, last year he couldn't crack the Australia A squad over Marky Mark. So I think Eddie, clear sign, Vunivalu, not it. Sorry, I missed out on one of the other real positives, which was Carter Gordon, obviously making his debut. Looked really good. Scored that try right at the end of the game. And look, looks like Nick Frost, doesn't look out of place in a gold jersey, right? I would be happy to see him start against Argentina. I think that would be really interesting to see. But I suspect Eddie's probably just going to, again, sort of be using this Rugby Championship as putting, looking at his pieces and shaving and shaping his side. He's not really, I don't know if he's necessarily, I think he's looking to win every game, but I think his focus is the World Cup, not this Rugby Championship. Other areas where we were let down. Look, I think the squad selection by Eddie was questionable. I get it. I absolutely get it. You don't want to rush Karevi back in and injure him before the World Cup. So you don't want him to play a full game back straight away in hostile territory against South Africa. I guess it's a very physical Springbok team. So you need to use someone else at inside centre. But you put Reece Hodge there. That I don't quite understand. I think what we discussed, what we thought was Hodge was going to be the fullback, and then you'd have just someone else at inside centre. You could just put someone else in there. Australia's got centres, right? And you've got people that can cover that position. Hodge just didn't look effective at all in that 12 jersey. And Tom Wright, again, I just don't think he's the fullback. I don't think he's the fullback for Australia. I think this Wallabies team would look very different with someone like Kellaway at the back there when he's healthy. You get a backline there with Karevi really rehabbed properly from injury. Nwangani-Tuase and Korobetti on the wings, Kellaway at fullback. Ikitau or someone else at outside centre. I think you've got a pretty good set of outside backs there. The front row as well was a bit disappointing. I think it was high effort from Slipper and Alatoa, but but still not that great. Parecki looked good, even though he did get that yellow card and penalty try, which is unfortunate, but it sort of is what it is. I can't really cry foul on that one. It just sort of is. It's one of those messy situations that it is what it is. The replacement front row were, not really a factor. I think ULSA was pretty disappointing actually.
Yeah.
And then Tom Hooper was actually really disappointing for my mind. I was expecting really big things from him, and it just didn't come out to play. So I think that's good though, because now we've seen, okay, this is how these guys play. We know kind of what we're going to get from them now. We've seen them. They were thrown in the cauldron and they got burnt. They didn't step up to play. Other people did step up to play. Now we know what we get from them in high pressure situations. And I think that's one thing that you've got to look long term. You've got to look further than one game, right? This is Eddie Jones' project is a 5-year project, not a 1-year project.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I question. I think we both sit here and question. Now looking back in hindsight, obviously, you look back after the result and you go, what were some of those selections? Like I'm not a Tom Hooper fan. Like I don't want to say I'm anti Tom Hooper, but I think he's overrated for his ability. Not like I wouldn't have minded him in the squad. I don't think he's your first choice 6. Like I don't think and it's just interesting going into a, like you've said multiple times, a hostile environment like that and chucking some guys on deep ends. I still think Vunivalu's, as you said, high ceiling. Like when he's there and he's got the ability, he can be as good as Korobetti. And to put him in South Africa against some of the better wingers and not save him for the game at home in Parramatta, just to me, it's interesting. I don't want to sit there and say that I don't trust Eddie, because Eddie, if anyone knows this as well as anyone, it's Eddie. But there has been some concerning points, and it gets me questioning. Do Australians get rugby? Do you get it?
See, you put that in the run sheet.
I don't know if you actually understand rugby anymore. Like that's where I'm getting to that point now, where I'm like, do they even know what rugby is?
Yeah, I think Eddie Jones has just got a mind that is built differently to everyone else's, and it just looks at the game differently. And I think as well, he looks at it. He spent some time in England now in Europe. He looks at things a bit more long term than maybe perhaps we do here in the Southern Hemisphere. About looking at his squad and keeping people healthy, and as taking that health factor into consideration, as well as chemistry, as well as just experimenting and seeing what people could do. So
yeah, I mean, and
that's what I take out of this, is that we've seen that what these guys could do, and okay, great, we've seen what they could do. Fine, we've got other people waiting in the wings. We can see what they can do. Now that's what this Rugby Championship should be: is looking and seeing what people can do.
But at what point? And I was about to say, and Eddie, you trust because that's all you've got at the moment. But at what point do you just not have the right cattle? You know what I mean? Like, you can only send so many reserve hookers on their way before you go, we just don't have a fucking reserve hooker. Like, where does the line stop?
Well, I get that. I mean, I think Lockie Lonergan is a fine replacement hooker, but I think his issue is size, right? That's one thing that's been brought up, and why ULSA was in there over him, is that he's a bigger body, and he wanted to have that bigger body up against the physical South African pack. But I, I think you've got to. I think it's a fair concern, and I think that's why Rugby Australia is building towards World Cup 2027, right? And that's why they signed Eddie Jones that 5-year deal and that's why they're putting more efforts back into youth rugby and things like that. Is to bring up more capable players as well. So, it's always a concern. Reserve hook has been a concern for a little bit for Australia as well, similar to the second row. But I think it's one that will be addressed. The benefit of international rugby is that it is only 15 on 15, or if you include the 23 on 23, right? So while South Africa can split their squads, and that's great and everything, you can still only put 15 players in the park at any one time. So while we might not have that same depth as South Africa, as long as we've got enough depth to fill those 23 positions, then we can compete. We can compete with anyone. And I think that's Australia's, though, it needs to make sure that we can keep that depth of having 23 quality players to put out there. And that's what Eddie's is doing. He's looking, saying, okay, who are my top 23? Who are my 23 best players that I can put out there so that we can compete with everyone else? Is Tom Hooper as good as as he is at Super Rugby level? Maybe not. Is Suliasi Vunivalu, ready to show that his flashes are more than just little bursts here and there, but he can actually be a consistent quality player and a good convert like a Marika Koroibete? And the answer to those were no. But we also had other questions, right? How would Carter Gordon go, even in just some limited action? He went pretty well. Would having Will Skelton and Richie Arnold in the second row solidify that position for us? Yeah, they looked pretty damn good in those positions, right? But there's still more questions that need to be answered, and that's what we'll see against Argentina. That's what we'll see against the All Blacks as well.
So now, putting on your Aussie coaching hat, what does the lineup look like? The 23 that you select for Argentina, because, I don't want to say, as you say, you're experimenting at the moment, and no matter how bad these results are, if you win a Rugby World Cup, it all matters naught. But losing to Argentina at home this weekend wouldn't be a great look for Eddie's first two games. So you still need to obviously get the results. Again, South Africa's a very hard place to play, and I'm not saying that this result is going to decide Eddie's future or anything, but putting on your coaching hat, what 23 are you going with to make sure you get the job done?
Look, the full 23 will be hard to call because I'm not sure about health and injuries and things like that, right? But I think for the forward pack, your forward pack, front rows, your starting front row stays the same. I think your second row stays the same as well. Like, they weren't bad. South Africa's just very, very good.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know that you could do too much to tinker with that. I think you could keep Hooper at 7, Bobby V at 8. Still a great pairing. I think Holloway at 6, though. I think Holloway he's a quality player, and he's high effort as well, and he's productive. I really would like to see him. I'd like to see Fraser McWright in the squad somewhere as well. I think he's ready for that next level push. He's young, full of energy as well. So maybe on the bench or something like that for McWright. But I want to see him in the squad. Personally, I'd love to see what they do at the Brumbies happen against Argentina, where you have your sort of veteran playmakers on the bench to close out the game, and you have the young guns start. So I'd like to see a pairing of McDermott and Gordon at 9 and 10 to start this game. And I think those young running legs will do well at start, and then the level heads later can also can maybe provide a spark late. But also, I just want to see more of what they can do, right? Yep. In terms of backline, I think Koroibete, Nwangani, Tawase, your wingers. Karevi, depending on health, should be the starting inside center. Otherwise, I'm not really sure. I just don't know who's healthy. I would love to see Fiketti there if he's healthy, but I don't think he is.
Yeah.
Iki Tau at 13. Can't see a reason to take him off. And then Callaway at 15 if he's healthy. If he's not, then it's Tom Wright. But I really want Callaway to be healthy and back.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. it's one of those ones you're never going to be fully healthy, but you just naming those squads, it's so many question marks in the air, like so many. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. And we've talked a lot, obviously, about Australia. South Africa were very, very good. Let's not take away that this wasn't just a poor Aussie performance. Aussie had to make 3 times the amount of tackles. You know, South Africa were very good. They didn't kick away as much position as they normally do. They just played very smart, I would say. And
that is one thing I did take a little bit of issue, is that early in the game, Australia kicked it quite a bit. And I probably would like to see ball in hand a little bit more. Like, I do like the aggression for some of it. You know, like it was attacking kicks. It wasn't just defensive. There was some attacking kicks in there. But I would love to see some more phase play developed. Just hold the ball and just wear the South Africans down a bit more. Like, you're playing at high altitude, but South Africa's also playing there. Like, yeah, they're used to it more than you are, but you could still use it to your advantage. Still wear them out a bit. And I think that's really... The Australians didn't control the game as much as South Africa, and I think they could have used some more of that control early on, and they just didn't. Team like Argentina, hell, it might even work against the All Blacks, but I think South Africa at that stadium, it wasn't the right call. You could be a bit more grinding. You needed to be a bit more grinding like what South Africa were, and then when you're gassed, take on the outside with speed, right? And Vunivalu has got speed when he's in attack. I just think his defense is not up to scratch. It's not international standard defense.
Yeah, totally. And
there's a reason they picked on his wing. There's a reason they picked on it.
Yeah. And I think Argentina were probably very similar, where they kicked away too much possession and just found themselves in a hole, and it's hard to get out of those holes when you get into them. Let's talk about that AB's game. After a nearly 30 seconds of a charge down kick, it was one-way traffic for the first half. Probably the best performance, or best half of a performance, in the Ian Foster era. And I was really impressed with a couple of names. Geordie Barrett seems like when he takes off the yellow jersey that has the 12 on the back and puts on the black jersey that has the 12 on the back, he just becomes another player. He's the Dane guy. Yeah. Yeah, it was, again, he carried, looked really good. Amoni Nawai, I think Nawara. Looked fantastic on the wing in his debut, another very good winger that we can add. And D-Mac with a start impressed me a lot. So, look, there's pressure on. Even Bodie at the back looked really good. Second half fell away, but again, there's a lot of these guys have played a Super Rugby final a couple of weeks ago, a long travel out to Argentina. Gave up a lot of penalties. I wasn't too there was a lot of guys that put their hands up and not a lot that, shelled. I thought Dane Coles had his best game for a long time in an All Blacks jersey. And I think, everything came away really happy. I could just tell early on, as good as that Argentina defence can be, I could see there was gaps opening and I could see opportunities. And I was like, if we get it right, we will take them apart. And we ended up doing so. So a good win by the All Blacks. But, I mean, it all means naught now. It legitimately all means naught now, because the game of the year before the World Cup is happening. Like, if you can't get excited for a team that won 43-12 and a team that won 41-12 coming together in the second round of this Rugby Championship, you can't get excited. I don't know what. Yeah. You can't get excited. So, look, those 13 players that came across will have been getting ready. I'm really interested what Foster's going to do with the squad naming. Obviously, we're playing at Mount Smart, not the Garden of Eden. So I don't want to already make excuses, but I'm already prepping myself for excuses if we lose this one. But I have no plans for my All Blacks to lose, I can tell you that.
Fair enough.
Along with the All Blacks XV also got a very big win in Japan. It started off really slow, really messy, but the All Blacks XV turned on. Stan deciding not to fucking show this game was bitterly disappointing. So for us All Blacks fans that live here, I sat there and I watched it, and Stephen Perifetta, I thought, played one heck of a game. And to me, I just sat there and went, did the Blues miss something? Not having, like, Perifetta starting for the All Blacks second team, Beauden Barrett starting at fullback for the All Blacks first team, and they didn't have that lineup. It just, to me, was something was bizarre. And I know Leon McDonald was coach of the All Blacks 6V, but it was something to take away where I was like, surely these Super Rugby teams can see that talent there and just didn't obviously use it. So I was interested. Japan started strong, but they, as much as this was a Japan XV, there were some very good players involved, and I was a little bit disappointed. I definitely called my jets a little bit on the Japan talk of beating Argentina and England in their pools at the World Cup. I was kind of like, I was more disappointed with Japan than I was with Argentina. Argentina got caught in that All Black storm that sometimes you get caught in when they're on attack and it's just like, fuck, they've scored and they've scored again and then they've scored again, and all of a sudden they've led them 3 tries and you don't really know what's happened. You know, it happens to your Wallabies all the time, so you know how that feels. Because the Australians don't get rugby. It's all right. We get it. It was a good weekend for me, mate. What could I say? Like, the All Blacks got a big win, and as much as I wouldn't have mind seeing South Africa lose, if there was something to happen like that to get you Aussies a little bit riled up, I'll take it.
We'll see what happens at the end of the year. We'll see what happens.
I'm glad you've got this future plan sorted, that you know that Eddie's planning for the future, because all you'll be focusing on now is the World Cup.
Yeah, look, we always knew Rugby Championship was going to be an experiment. We knew it's his first game with, 6 months on the job, you know? It's not a lot of time. With a full Super Rugby season where he hasn't had access to all the players, there's a lot of work to do. There's a reason he signed a 5-year contract, not a 1-year contract.
If Rennie put out that performance with a team, they'd be coming for his head. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, because Rennie had several years to do the job.
Several years.
I gave Rennie a lot of slack in his first year as well. I gave him a lot of slack in his first year. You know, first year with the team, first year doing this and that. You know, but as time goes on, that's when the pressure mounts, right? When it's your first year in the job, you've had 6 months, and your first game is at Lofberg, in Loftus in South Africa, right? That's a tall order for any coach. Tall order for any coach with a lot of your squad out injured. It's a tall order.
What did you make of Eddie's altercation with the press afterwards? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, I saw a little bit of it. I mean, you know, it's good. I like him standing up for his players. I like him standing up for South Africa as well. It is a bit disrespectful to South Africa, to those players that go out there and, you know, someone from your own country saying, "Oh, you guys are the B team." Like, anyone who pulls on Springboks jersey is a Springbok. Anyone who pulls on the Wallabies jersey is a Wallaby. Anyone who pulls on the All Blacks jersey is a cunt.
That was good. That was good from you.
Yeah, no. That's harsh, you know. You're not, I should have saved it for England. No. Anyone who pulls on an All Blacks jersey is an All Black. But so to say that is disrespectful to everyone involved. You know, everyone is a professional athlete at a very, very high level. And to make that smart-ass remark it just shows what journalism is nowadays. It's clickbait journalism. It was deliberately trying to get rise out of him. He got the rise out of him, but you know what? Good on Eddie for standing up for his players. Like, that is just a cheap shot and a pretty low thing to say.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's easy to make smart-ass comments like that when you're behind the microphone as a reporter and you've got no stakes in the game. So, you know, it reeks of unprofessionalism.
Totally. I saw the headline and I was like, oh, here we go. What's happened here? But then I read what the guy actually said and I was like, well, I would expect any coach to say that. Like, I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, are you grateful that they didn't select their strong? Well, they didn't select a B team. I can tell you that. Like, Peter Steph du Toit was, you know, World Player of the Year a few years ago. You've got Lucano Arm, who's a very fine centre, and as we said, Kirtley, who is probably one of the best wingers in the world at the moment. So that was definitely no scrub of a team just because they said it's going to be really interesting. Like you said, only 23 can be selected. I couldn't tell you what the best 23 South African team is, and it's going to be hard for them to decide that as well. Like, obviously, Eben Etzebeth's going to be involved, and Malcolm Marks are going to be involved. There's a couple of big names there, but other than that, I sat there and went, well, you know, like, it'll be really interesting. This game this week, I don't think I've been more hyped for an international game for a very long time. Except for, I must say, after the Bledisloe Cup game, Bernard Foley, you know, that game, I was pretty hyped for the next one because I knew we were going to pump you by 50 points and it was going to be really good. So I was hyped for that one. But yeah, this one has got me a nervous hype where I'm like, they could actually beat us, but we could smoke them, and this is going to be fantastic. So I'm expecting some fantastic rugby. I'm expecting. I wouldn't want to be the referee in that game, I can tell you that much, and that's saying something because, yeah. But shall we move on to the Wallaroos and the Black Ferns, the women's teams killing our Northern American rivals? We beat Canada and you beat USA. Is that correct?
Yep.
I got that the right way? Yeah. On the weekend after we had thumped you 50-0 the week before. So, yeah, I mean, I love seeing women's football getting more and more publicity, more and more game time, more series like this. I know that means we've qualified for that WXV1, the new women's tournament that they're bringing out. And I assume if you beat Canada, you shall also qualify. Shall we talk?
Sure, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, I would assume so. But I've got no idea. I haven't read enough on. I'm too focused on South Africa right now. I'm laser focused on making sure I get myself prepared for my All Blacks to beat the South Africans. Even though I know I play no part in it, but I've got to be ready just in case.
You've got to channel your energy.
Exactly.
You brought up an interesting point before about. Oh, sorry. Did you need a minute?
You're good.
No. Okay. You brought up an interesting point before about Australia and like not having enough bodies and things like that. I think if there's any indication that in the future we will have some really good bodies, it's the under-20s, where the under-20s Australians once again have beaten the under-20 New Zealand team. Once again.
Yeah, look, all right, you won. We had a red card in like the 20th minute. So, and then we had another yellow card. So I'm not saying it wasn't pretty. It definitely wasn't pretty. You won. Congrats. You can finish fifth in this tournament now because none of us qualified for the top four. So all I'm hoping is that Ireland and France, who have made the final of the Under-20s World Cup, have used all their good Rugby World Cup juju on this World Cup. Yeah. And so that they statistically now they can't make the final because of the real World Cup because they've made the Under-20s, and you just can't do that. Like, you know, the gods of rugby will not let you make an Under-20 World Cup final and a grown man's World Cup final. So I think it's Ireland versus France. France looked like the favourites. France beat England pretty convincingly, whereas Ireland held off the Springboks Under-20. The setup for how that tournament, I've always thought this was a weird setup for how the top four get named because there's 3 pools, so the top team of each pool, and then whoever comes second best and one of the pools goes through. So New Zealand in that last game, they had to play Japan. If they'd won by 67, they would have knocked England out of the World Cup, the Under-20 World Cup, and England hadn't lost a game at that point, and that would have been quite hilarious for everyone involved. Coach's Corner, we already talked about Eddie Jones getting rolled up. Obviously, a lot of work to do with himself. Jamie Joseph has announced his resignation at the end of the World Cup with Japan, which I would assume now will make him one of the hotter prospects out there for a coaching job after this World Cup because everyone loves Jamie Joseph. So I know the Blues have signed Vern Cotter. Hurricanes have obviously locked in. Crusaders have locked in. So I assume it's not going to be... Chiefs aren't going to be changing anytime soon. So my assumption will be he'll end up over in Europe somewhere coaching a club team for the moment. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he wants to, definitely takes over one of those European international teams somewhere down the line.
He was a prospect along with Razor for the All Blacks job.
The All Blacks job. He was very close. I think he was closer to Razor than getting at that first interviews. I'm pretty sure after the interviews he kind of knew it was going to Ian Foster, so took his name out of the hat. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Do not quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure, he was right up there against Ian Foster for the job. And so, again, what he's done with Japan, I know Eddie Jones built a really good base, but he's taken them to another level, I think. And what he did with the Highlanders in his time there, I imagine there'll be some shark circling for his signature. Tana Umaga also signs with Moana Pacifica after Aaron Major left the role. I'm interested with this. I think he'll connect really well with the players. Yeah. He's got enough coaching experience now he could do a good job. I I'm of the belief that it was never the coach that was the issue at Moana Pacifica. It was the structure of how it was set up, and the players just weren't yet ready. I think they'll get there, and give them, like the Hurricanes have had 25 years, all those other Super Rugby teams have had 25 years. But I just think it's more a Moana Pacifica issue than a coach issue. But I'm excited that they've managed to sign a coach in Tana Umanga.
Yeah, I think it'd be really positive for them. But there's more issues there, but it's just more experience to go along with the more winning ways. So yeah, it's a good signing.
Totally. And lastly, the Sam Cane streak incident. Have you seen this, my friend?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, lazy. Like, if you're gonna do it, just fucking commit. That's such a. And he's getting in trouble anyway.
I know.
So
they're gonna probably ban him for a game. So I couldn't believe that. I was like, I didn't even think about, smoke the guy. Like, if you're going to do it, just absolutely lay him out. He should have. And Sam Cane, who put on a couple of good hits in that game, I can't believe that he's going to get banned for tripping up a streaker who put himself and everyone else around him in stupidity. Like, I just go, look, again, it's very Sam Cane number 7 like, but yeah, I like your idea. Smoke the cunt.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go for it, because tripping just looks lazy. You can't even then build an excuse of like, oh, look, I was worried he was gonna hurt some of my players, which is you could use, I think, as an excuse if someone's rushing on the pitch, rushing towards you and your players, right? In a game where you're smoking the home team, then you
don't know. Yep.
There's safety concerns to be had there, but he just went for a little soccer player trip, so.
So next time, any streaker that runs on the field, players just absolutely lay them out. That's all we want to see.
Just
also, if you're a streaker, streak. Don't fucking do it fully clothed. Like, I don't mind if you're just going to go, like, budgie smugglers. Like, feel free. Like, you want to leave your undies on, go with undies on. But if you're fully clothed, you're not a streaker. You're a weirdo. You've just run onto the pitch.
Just go full Andrew Simons. And take
it. Andrew Simons he's left a mark of how to do it. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
It's a big weekend for both of our teams. Obviously, your team's got to bounce back. My team has to build on what we did and has one of the greatest challenges coming to us. But for now, that is all the rugby news. We'll keep you updated with team lists, so make sure you follow us on all of the socials and our predictions. For now, I will say goodbye. My name's been Luke. That's been Hughesy. Goodbye.